first page. This explains the specific details. Remember, the PDFs that I provided, that numbered series 0 through 6, I believe it is just a guide. It's like a digital custom type of textbook on how to do things. What you need to do is in this document called Assignment 1. So you have to create the drawing. That's step 0. We did that together, so I hope everybody's got that ready. I want you to program the description keys, and I want you to create the point styles, the point label styles, the point groups, and so on. So all the styles you need are specified here. These are the specifications. So there are 1, 2, so if we look here, I'm just going to highlight this area. These are the point styles you need to create. There's an example of how to create one. It's PDF number 1, I think it is. Then there's the point label styles. You need 4 of those with these settings. And I will be marking everything that I've asked you to do. So if you notice, maybe in this one here for style with just the elevation shown, even though the point number and the description is going to be false visibility, I won't see it. I can still go in and make sure that you've had the right settings. Okay, so I just want you to get in there and work with the software and make sure you know where these settings are. So even though you're not going to see them, I still want you to change the settings. Okay, so make all those setting updates. So these are the first 2 things, point styles and point label styles. Then there's the point groups. So these are the names of the groups. So the names again should be similar to the turn off the webcam. Yeah, I can do that. So I'm going to do this. Better. So we'll see if that takes effect. So these are the specifications for all the point groups that you have to create. For each point group, there's a point style and a point label style. Okay? So if you do this in the order in which I presented it, then when you go to create the groups, the point style and the point label style are ready for the time. The description is optional. If you want to put that in, I usually do, so you know exactly what those codes mean. And please be mindful of the names. I'm going to go back one, right? When you create your description keys and when you create your point groups, the name of the item. If it's a point group, it starts with a G dash. If it's a point layer, it starts with a P dash. If it's a linear feature from the DXF, it starts with a T dash. But all of that is tying into the CSV file, which all the descriptions start with a T dash. Okay, so that might be a little confusing. And then there's a set of instructions here at the bottom half of this page, which is most of what you need to do. A little more detail. So I'm just going to zoom in on myself. So it kind of gives it to you in order. Import the points from the topo. Make sure you use the assigned number. So go into Gradebook and see what topo number you were assigned. Only one of those 8 should be used. As a matter of fact, once you know which number is assigned to you, you can delete the other 7. Insert the DXF file. It's got all the break line data you're going to need. Remember, do not use sand, storm, and water main layers as break lines. Okay, they're underground features. They'll be used later when we look at servicing. Create a new layer, call it watercourse. Connect the dots on the P watercourse layer. So the P watercourse layer, if you use your description keys properly, should have all those points on it. Okay, the perimeter of the surface should reflect the true limit of the data. So none of those long, weird triangles outside the perimeter of the site. Draw it on the boundary. Now, you can draw it however you like. Okay, that's the instruction, draw the boundary, but I demonstrated a technique, remember that copy 2,000 meters over and then 2,000 meters back. When I expand break lines and then add and then select the object, it did not work. 0 break lines were found. List the line work. Make sure they're polylines. In order for a line to be defined as a break line, it must be a polyline. So if you explode it more than once, you'll have just lines. And then my recommendation is to delete that and import the file again. Only polylines can be break lines. So check that. Create the existing ground. Include all the polylines as break lines for the surface. Not all the polylines, everything but sandstorm and water. Define the boundary. Review the surface, check it for spikes. And when it comes to the spikes, you have to determine your ignore less than value and ignore greater than value by looking at the point data, sort the points by elevation in the database. In that case, you can look at the all points point group and sort it by the elevation column. Freeze for presentation now. This is getting into the presentation part. I don't want to see any of the P dash layers except for the trees, the maintenance holes for sand and storm, and the hydrants. Okay? The purpose of creating a surface is so you don't have to be bothered with the points. Right? The contour map really gives you a better idea of what the ground feature is, what the ground shape is, the topography. So the P dash layers will be frozen except for the surface features. Right? Trees, I want to see where those are, sanitary, storm, and hydrant. Okay, so those are the only layers that should be showing in your drawing or on your plot. Okay? I will be marking two things. I'm going to go into the details of your drawing to see your settings. So you're going to submit your DWG, and you're also going to submit a PDF, which I'll explain how to create today. Okay, all the layer colors and line types should be set to the settings of the table below. So the next page has that information. Don't do that until you've created everything, imported everything, and so on. Because some of the layers are created automatically. You shouldn't have to create layers or many of them. Okay? So don't go through the exercise of creating all the layers now. Wait till the end. Okay? That's one of the last things you should do. Next thing you want to do is what T layers should be shown. All of them. Okay? All the linear features. You want to show the map features. I want to see the center line, such as pavement, shoulder, service information. And I think those are on the list. If we go to the next page, all the T dash layers are pretty much there on this list. Okay, I'll get to that. Okay, so back to here. Create a copy of the standard surface style. Go to tool space, not prospect, but settings. Create a copy, and generally that's the rule of thumb. If you need a new style, you can usually make a copy of the standard style. That standard style always exists in the software. When you load the software out of the box, there's always a standard style. It's usually not very good looking. It's got stuff, but it's not always the best style to use for anything. So we usually make a copy of it, rename it, and then change the settings. So I've given you the contours interval. I want you to have a major contour of a meter and a minor contour of a half meter. So you should see a color combination of, remember, green, brown, green, brown, green, brown, instead of one green and 3 or 4 brown in between. Revise the new style, change the contour intervals, turn on the display of the major and minor contours only, so turn off the triangles. We don't want to see the triangles. And then you can start to add labels. Okay, and again, strategically add labels. This point here, what is it? Sorry. This one. So when you're creating the labels for the contour labels, you can use the multiple command in the plan and strategically place labels using the ground features. Remember I said concentrate on those areas bound by the different water features. And when you lay out these lines that are going to have contour labels with it, make sure that the line that you draw, that polyline that's going to call out the elevations, is actually perpendicular to the contours. So if you follow the shape of the contours in a perpendicular orientation, then the labels get laid out in a way that kind of hugs the surface, hugs the ground feature. You don't just want to draw straight lines, horizontal or vertical for the proper lines. You want to make it a little more artistic. If you follow the lie of the lands with the contour labels, then you will have a better representation. You don't get lost with labels that kind of take away from the shape of the ground. Okay. And then it gives you some information on changing the text style for the labels. The next point, we demonstrated a little bit about that last time, and then change the component visibility for the minor contours to false when you're labeling steep slopes, and I demonstrated that last time. And then this is the last piece here, which is really what I'm going to talk about today. Your drawing must have a north arrow. Create one, find one, do what you have to do. Go back to one of your files from DEA or CRX. Create one from scratch, borrow one from the software. It needs a north arrow. and then complete the title block information. I'll show you that. Make use of Paperspace setup for the title block and the view presentation. We'll look at that together, and then you're going to plot to paper. When you go to plot this to the device, DWG to PDF, it's already set up. So when you go to Paperspace, you're just going to print. You don't have to set up anything. I've already set up the printing for that. And then you're going to upload to the assignment, the Blackboard assignment, the PDF and the DWG, the 543 Topo. Okay? No, obviously no hard copies are required. As a matter of fact, I haven't accepted hard copies of this course for a few years now. So this course, that's pretty easy. Not much to change in terms of how I'm going to treat this. And then on the last page, it just gives you those final settings for the layer. There are layers here. Again, there's a list of layer names here, and I've assigned colors and line types to each. If the layer name is not here, then just leave it alone. Don't do anything. Okay? And I said to students last time, if I ask you to make changes, then I can check those changes. If you change something that I didn't ask you to change, it's going to be very difficult to undo that if I don't know what you did or you don't remember what you did. Okay? So, any changes you make that I didn't ask you to make might be difficult to trace, and if it's causing you grief in your drawing, we won't be able to figure out how to change it back because it was never written down somewhere to do. So if I asked you to do something, do it. If I didn't, I wouldn't, unless you're comfortable with that and the effects of what that might have in your drawing. And so for every layer, I have a color and a line type. Again, some of them are missing. Remember, we froze the P' layers except for a few. Then we want to make sure that we just use these. Question. Okay. So that's the assignment. Okay, so let me go through the presentation part of this.